Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Enger. And today I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Leemarie Hossetter. Hey, Lee.
Hello.
So we are here to give you guys an update. First of all, I want to announce that Jillian Hughes is in the IFBB Pro League. And I know she was hoping that during our podcast that she could announce her pro status, but as I was telling her this weekend, I'm like, everything that you shared with our audience over your 19 years of experience, that's who you are. Like your title doesn't matter. It's what you contribute to this industry, what you know, the people that you've helped. And so that's just kind of like the cherry on top is having that title. But I'm like, that does not define you. So I told her, I'm going to announce it today. I gave her a huge hug. We were actually on the same flight home and she's just on cloud nine and she took home the big card and I was so excited for her. I mean, I don't know of anybody that's done this for 19 years and hasn't given up. That kind of tenacity is just unmatched. And so I was really excited for her.
I kind of am almost glad that we got her on the podcast like right before she went pro, just for that specific example of people with bodybuilding. I think with any sport, you kind of think of it as like Olympic gymnasts, for example. Like you have a very small window where you're good. And
Mhm.
for bodybuilding, it's longevity. And
Yeah.
sometimes like I've been told like I just need more muscle maturity. They literally told me you need more time in this sport. And for her to have competed for 19 years and just now become a pro, it's a totally different, it's a marathon sport. So I think that's
Yeah.
really encouraging for us who are in the sport to think about and not give up so fast if we've been competing for 4 or 5 years and haven't gone pro yet. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because she was texting me really early in the morning because I had to wake up. Obviously, we had the same flight. We didn't realize it, but we did because my connection was St. Louis to Kansas City. And, she's texting me early in the morning and she's like, yeah, I've gotten a total of about like 3 hours of sleep. And she's like, I literally wanted to hang on my heels so many times and thinking like this wasn't the right move. And then she's like, I even started planning for next year's run of things. And then her husband's like, wait a minute, did you watch the same video I did? Like, I think you don't need to make plans. And she's like, really? And she's just like, she's hit second place, third place so many times. And I really give her a lot of credit for just not giving up. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So
yeah.
tell us more about your weekend.
Yeah. So I had, Cinzia is how you pronounce her name. It looks like Cinzia, but she's from Italy. So she just started competing at age 61. She did her first regional show in April, and then this was her first national show, second show ever. So it was really nice to get to meet her in person because we did a virtual coaching for her first show. And it was super nice that she got to compete with people that were her same age because she placed in the open at her regional show, but literally she said everybody was like in their 20s. And so for her at 61, to get fifth in open class, I thought was amazing. But I'm like, just
That
wait. I'm
muscle
like,
maturity. It's that muscle
yeah.
maturity. Let's
I'm
go.
like, just wait. Like, you're gonna, she's like, are you sure I haven't just started the sport way too late in life? I'm like, no, trust me, you're ready.
Wow.
So, she picked me up from the airport on Friday. And we went through posing and everything. And so this is just like a PSA that I want to tell everybody because I don't know how many times I've seen this happen where people buy the connector that hooks in the
Mhm.
back on the bottom of your top. Um, and when you start leaning out, that connector, yeah, it's very pretty. First of all, it's covered by your hair most of the time, so it doesn't really matter. Um, but if it's not adjustable, you're kind of just stuck. And her suit was so loose on her top because she had leaned out and like the under boob was kind of showing. So luckily the front desk had a sewing kit. Luckily she can sew. And we sewed like the little bit of fabric near the cup, like in. So it fit her well. But I just would say always get a tie back. Don't ever let somebody talk you into even on the slider connector,
Mhm.
or the one that has like a tie and the crystallized connectors, if you know what I'm talking about, because the length of it, it can only tie so tight with those connectors. So just get the basic tie. It's actually way cheaper, but it's also more practical. And really, people can't see your back in bikini. Your hair is covering that part anyway. So just go for what's going to make you look the best on stage at that time. I would also suggest not doing the slider connector around the neck. I know that that's like convenient to kind of like just loosen it up when you're like backstage and then tighten it up real fast, but get the tie there as well because it's the same issue. So that was one thing that we had to do Friday night. So again, like I was glad I was in person and I was glad the front desk had a sewing kit. I should have brought one.
That's the one I was gonna say. Make sure you have a sewing kit along with you. I brought one to every show.
Yeah,
I've never had to use it,
so
but make
smart.
sure you have one with, a variety of threads and a needle, but also with safety pins because this is
Yeah.
thankfully never happened to me, but I have been backstage when suits have ripped or broken and
Mhm.
literally you have to jury rig it backstage and it's fine. It'll last on stage and it'll be fine, but make sure you're prepared too.
Yeah, because even if you just drop weight too, sometimes like suit bottoms, same thing.
Mhm.
But they did come with these little safety pins, and we tried that first, but it was like they were so tiny that it they kept opening and like poking her.
Yep.
So yeah, bring bigger safety pins as well. And then the other thing that we discovered, so she has pretty naturally curly hair,
Mhm.
and I had told her to get it cut like a taper, which she did, but she has so much volume that even though it was in a taper, it was so curly that it was covering her beautiful rear delts and her lat spread or her lat, taper. So in bikini, it's all about matching the upper half to the lower half. And so that night she was like, no, no, it'll be fine. Cause once they curl it, it's going to like bring it in. And I said, trust me. I said, ask them for 4 bobby pins at least. And we tucked the
Yep.
sides of her hair with bobby pins to like pull it in more. It helped, but I kid you not. Can you imagine? Okay, so she was like, "That's really not a big deal, right?" Like you don't really think that it's a big deal, but the details matter. So when we went up to Sandy, even her husband was like, "Are you sure? Like that's like a thing?" And we were standing there with Sandy with feedback. What was the first thing she said? She said, "I really couldn't see your rear delts in the back pose because your hair was covering them." And
Wow.
she's like, "Just trim your hair." Like, if that's your only fix, I'm like, "That's great feedback." So
Oh,
it's a very
easy.
easy
Do
fix.
that before the next show. I have had to do that. I can remember Coach Brittany pinning my hair back underneath just
Uh-huh.
to see
She's
because
had
it
to do that
was
too.
so much volume. Yeah, hers too.
Yeah.
But also like don't discount the whole getting extensions too because my hair is very long and very thick. I've had to cut it certain ways, but and I've always just assumed that I didn't need to wear extensions. But the last show that I did, I actually borrowed your extensions, Amy, because we have the same hair. Um, and it looked so much better. The shape was so much better. And so, yeah, if you have long, naturally, natural long hair and it's thick and everything, maybe you're good, but like don't discount that that might help you on stage to have those extensions too.
Yeah, it just you got to think about everything's like more amplified on stage. Like your makeup is so intense if you saw that person in real life or, like not under the lights. And
Yeah.
same with the tan. Like everything's bigger in Texas, everything's bigger on stage, right? So you got to have like the big hair, but you also have to control it so that it frames out and displays your physique because they can only judge what they see. So, not only the fact, okay, so here's the next point here that I kind of have like with this whole thing about the 60 plus. So they were shocked. The expediter that I was talking to said that they had no clue that this many 60-year-olds would sign up for this show. There were 16,
Oh my
16 competitors. They had no
God.
idea. They're like,
No.
we would have totally split that class in half with short and tall. So I had her cross over in 55 just so she could get measured with her height because I wanted to see how she stacked up. When someone's 6 foot and she's 5 foot, there's a huge difference. You
Mhm.
know, if you're just all lumped in one height class for your age, it makes a big difference. And the people that placed ahead of her, if there was a height split, like she got fourth place. I don't think I said that, um, but basically, I mean, there could have been a pro card there because the girl that won her pro card was at least 5'10" or higher. And then the second place person as well. They were both about the same height. So, and she missed third place by like 1 point. Um, so again,
Been her hair.
yeah, it could have been there for sure. I mean, that's what Sandy said it was, you
Mhm.
know, because we talked to her. So anyway, we're gonna go for it again at North Americans. It's a month away. And I just texted Gary Udit today and I talked to Sandy before the night show and we were chatting about this and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, I'll talk to Gary. Like she immediately talked to Gary before the show started and they discussed. And Gary was texting me this morning saying that Sandy's going to talk to the higher ups to see if they can get a height split on the
Mhm.
60 because it's much needed. And Sandy was like, that was the first thing I thought when there were 16 people that came out. And she said, in 55, there were 17 in her class A in 55. She's like, 55 should have been split into four.
Mhm.
So it's going to be, I mean, it's a month away, North Americans, same venue. So she's going to give it another go and see if maybe there's a height split. So hopefully, you know, third show. It'd be awesome if she
Okay.
went pro.
Okay. First of all, congratulations, coach, on
Oh,
having a
thanks.
top five nationally ranked competitor once again.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Oh, you're sweet.
Huge props to you and your
Thank
athlete.
you.
And then I love that I feel like Masters Bikini is revolutionizing fitness in the
Yes.
older generation. Like
Yes.
totally revolutionizing it. I think
Yes.
I was just talking to a client today about something called, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right, but something called like your fitness age or your health age. And
Yes.
it's something that you can get
Yeah.
measured. And it's like a combination of measuring, your muscle density, your bone density, your conditioning, your cardio
Yeah.
conditioning, your heart health and things like that. And it can actually give you an age that's a lot different than your age. And I just feel like
Yeah.
this is a way that we can actually change people's mindset instead of like with retirement, with slowing down, with like just
Hmm.
naturally my metabolism is going to get slower and I'm going to have to fight against hormones and menopause and all this stuff. And we kind of just give up. Instead of that,
Yes.
like, let's start competing. Let's get in
Yes.
the best shape of our lives.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought up that point because when she first came to me back in, I think it was like last year in September or something, she called me and she was like, I just, once I started menopause, she's like, my stomach has gotten really like, I don't know. She's like, I just am storing belly fat in places that I never have before. And she was like, I just want to get in shape, basically. And she literally like this weekend she was like, oh my gosh, I should have started like so much earlier. I'm like, it's never too late to start. Like you just proved that at 61 and you also proved that you can fight menopause and then some and look in like the greatest shape of your life
Oh, her abs?
where
Okay.
yeah, and her stomach was her problem area. That was her whole reason for starting this whole journey was just that she wanted to kind of get rid of the belly fat that she was storing extra from menopause. So it's unbelievable how far she's come. And yeah, I was really proud of her.
Kidding. And yourself. Like, great job. We love
Oh,
you.
thanks. Thanks. Yeah, it was definitely a bigger show, numbers wise. Like if people are looking to get into the sport, the Masters is really like those are the big classes. I mean, at every show, I think across the board, and I don't know if it's like an inflation thing where, you know, like people that are in their 20s, they're not like as financially stable in their positions and careers and able to have like the flexibility. And but what for whatever reason, I mean, it's crazy how much it's grown because I remember doing Masters Nationals and they when I first started doing it, I don't think they even had more than like a 45. I think they had just gotten 50 in 2019 when I had a couple of my clients do the 50 class and they both got top 5 and I remember it was so small, like no more than 5 to 8 competitors in the Masters and now it's like exponentially, you know.
Yep.
But
Huge.
anyway,
Love it. I love it. Okay, so speaking of you being such a great coach, let's talk about you being on peak week and traveling and coaching athletes at the same time. Let's talk about that. How many times have you
okay.
done that, first of all?
Oh man, I can't even tell you because so I've competed at shows where I've coached people. So we were kind of talking about this before offline, just how, so my very first competitor that I had, I was planning on doing this bikini competition in like 2000, I think it was in 2012 when I first started bikini. And she was a figure competitor. And
Mhm.
we did the show at the same time. We went at different times because she was in figure and I was in bikini. And I coached her through the whole thing. She got nationally qualified. I think she got like second or third or something like that. So that was my very first client. So you have to understand that like that's what all I knew was
Mhm.
coaching while I was competing.
Mhm.
So my brain, I just when I'm competing, for one thing, I'm just when I'm in prep in general, you are a lot more like I don't know, maybe you're not the same way, but I really feel like I have to be so much more focused on like where I'm allotting time. There's no room for just like goofing around and like watching TV or whatever, just casually. Like you have to have everything, set in stone and structured. And for the last, what was that, 2012? So that was 12 years ago or whatever. Ever since then, I've always done that kind of stuff where, I've competed in 35 shows. So for me to like take time off from competing and coaching, like I would have never been coaching this whole time with all these athletes. And I remember, for North Americans, I got fifth in 35. Um, and then I turned around and coached Chris for her pro card in the open class because Masters was first and then open was second. And we did the same thing at Universe where I competed in the Masters um, at the beginning of the show. And then I just like kind of changed, put on my coach hat, and then
Oh,
coached. So, I mean, I've done it and like now that I'm getting like more people, like I remember the last time I competed at Masters Nationals, we had like 5 or 6 athletes from Glam Girl. That got a little hairy.
mhm.
Um, so I've tried to just really, I've always, the entire, this entire time, I've always avoided competing against my clients. Like I would scratch if I knew that we were going to be in the same height class, the same category. I will never do it. And so that's just like been my philosophy. And the only time I've competed like against somebody was my client, Heather. And there were 5 of us entered in the Masters. So we knew that, like, first of all, I knew she was going to place anyway, but she had lost 115 pounds. And I was like, I will totally scratch. I'll like go in a different category. I like, she's like, no, I want you on stage with me. And we actually held hands in the victory stance. I was like, it was the most powerful thing ever. It literally, it was so special to me. So that's the only time I've competed against a client, but like we literally were holding hands because I was third and she was fifth or something like that. I don't know, however it ends up, but we're holding hands and it was so special. Like grabbing her hand and pulling it up. It was just really neat. So that's
So
the only time I've ever competed against somebody in all these years.
do you find, and I'm sure you know the answer to this, but I just want to hear you talk about it, that it's like you don't coach yourself. So you
Right.
basically have someone coaching you. So if you're doing a
Mhm.
show and coaching someone else, you
Yep.
can literally just check in with your coach, follow the instructions, and then you can focus all your mental energy on your competitors. Would you say that's kind of correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it gets a little weird. Like, I mean, I'll do like a posing with them and then I'll do it with my team. And I mean, I've been doing this for so long. It's kind of like, by now I know like what's going on. So it's not like I need, you know, them
Hmm.
hand holding me. But yeah, I definitely think that as a coach, you need a coach because you need an objective eye. I get prep goggles so bad. And my coach Savannah will tell you, like, I've had them really bad the last couple of days. And it's just you need that person like kind of like reassuring you or, like telling you when to push the line to make you uncomfortable. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can even get that like far out. Like we were just talking before we got on the air about my prep, and even this far out of prep, you like that's why it's so important to have a coach that communicates with you on at least a weekly basis, because like
Yeah.
you get these goggles and you think that you should be somewhere where you're not, and it can actually totally blind you from the progress you're making. And so
Yeah.
if you have a coach that can like remind you and kind of steer you back on track, then it makes you that much more motivated to keep going and just encouraged and stuff like that. So you're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting back to your original question about prepping, and actually my peak week started Sunday. So, I had a super early morning flight. Like basically our time, I was up at 3 a.m. doing cardio, and my check-in day is Sunday. So it was rough. It was a rough check-in. I was like really in my head yesterday. So I felt better. I was like, can I just do like a redo and do a check-in this morning? So my weight was down back to like a new low. Like my hips were down to a new low. My thighs were down to a new low. But like I was stressing because if you check in at 3 a.m., I mean, hello. Like, plus, like when you travel, let's be honest, like, especially when you're coaching, you're probably not as hydrated as you should be because you kind of get that coach's hangover. You're kind of flying around.
Yep.
So I wasn't as, regular, let's say, to be,
You don't have time. You don't
blunt.
have time to drink. You don't have time to pee. You're running all day.
And plus, you're in the air too. So, I had an early morning flight on Friday. And so I was up early doing my cardio, and then also, Sunday. And you compound that, sleep is huge for the body and stress and your cortisol retention and water and all of that. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what point I was getting at, but basically pack all your food to the T. Like I brought my little Hot Logic
Mhm.
knockoff, and I was cooking in the airport both the times, and I just brought like very basic foods, followed my peak week plan, and yeah, just stuck to those. And then I did like some hotel gym workouts. So I made sure that Saturday, that show day I planned it so that that would be like my rest day for weights. So that if something came up, I knew she was early in the show because she started the show at like 8 a.m. So there's actually a big time gap. So I ended up being able to get like a light workout in between. But um, yeah, you kind of have to just like plan those logistic things too, and hope for the best. Um, it was a hotel workout, so it probably wasn't like super intense, but yeah, I made it work. So that's
Love
kind of what you
it.
do when you're on
You're
peak
heading
week
into peak week.
and
How are
coaching.
you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm just gonna have fun this weekend and enjoy it. And so I'm excited. This will be really the first time Savannah was saying, like, I can be your backstage mom and all this stuff. And I'm like, in the 35 shows that I've done, I've never had somebody backstage with me, like as my coach. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is the first time I'm ever going to have somebody like actually taking care of me. And that's a huge value for me. I think that's really why, like, a lot of the passion that I have for this sport, like, and making sure people are taken care of. Like one of the reasons why it was important for me to do like the team shows and stuff is because I think it's really important for somebody to have their coach with them, especially like at that first show. And I mean, like with North Americans, now that Chincy's done it, like we're gonna do it virtually because it's kind of last minute plans for a flight. But like I wanted to be there for her first national show. And I'm gonna always do that kind of stuff just because that's important, when you're a new athlete to something, and especially like this will be a new adventure on Saturday for me. So I have no clue. And so it's like you need that person there, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
It's really nice.
It
It's
can
a
pick up.
luxury to have that. So I feel really blessed about that. But
I'm so excited for you. I can't
thanks.
wait to interview you about this experience.
TBA.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
exactly.
talk about it later. But yeah. Yeah.
Love
So
it.
I think that's pretty much a recap of the show. I mean, if anyone is Masters Nationals is definitely the easiest format. Like North Americans is a lot because it has the open, so it becomes a long day, but Masters Nationals is so easy. It's so seamless. And then every first place in every height class gets a pro card. So it definitely has the best odds
Mhm.
in that regard. And it's really smooth. But yeah. Anything else that I didn't cover about the show or that you wanted to
I,
talk about?
no, I think we covered it all. I just can't wait to hear more about your athlete. And just, it's just fascinating to me, those little tiny things that make such a big difference that you,
Yes.
even as a coach, notice. And then Sandy called it out right away. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the difference of having a coach there to like pay attention to those tiny little details that we think might be insignificant, but actually could make that 1 point difference.
Well, and then I just think about like, what if she didn't have a bobby pinned? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because she
Hmm.
was not, that was not on her radar at all. So I think I mean, who knows if she would have even gotten fourth? I don't know. But yeah, something new though that I did forget to mention because I think everybody needs to know this about national shows, which I was so grateful that Sandy did this when we were chatting. I asked her like how, do you want us to wait? Because 60 was like basically started the show. Teen and collegiate had started, but there was just one in each. And I'm like, do you want us to like wait and then come back later? And she's like, no. She's like, ever since junior nationals, which she's the promoter of, she's like, I've just decided that at the night show, once the other judges get there, like Bill and Tyler and Attila, she's like, I'm just gonna go backstage, take my notes. Everybody's gonna line up and get feedback. So literally all the athletes, like as they were going on stage, were just going in line and getting feedback from Sandy. It was so nice because then people can go for dinner and like they actually get to hear from her. It was just really, really nice experience because literally, 5 minutes after Chintzy stepped off stage, we had that feedback.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And
I've
I was
stood in
like,
line for like half an hour before to get feedback.
yeah, I told her, I was like, since you're starting the show and we have to go through all these classes, I was like, I'll just wait and you go to dinner with your husband. And then if you come back and she's ready, then that's fine. But otherwise, I have your pictures. I'll talk to her about your feedback. And then when I talked to Sandy, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's such a nice, like, value that you're bringing to everybody. I'm sure it's better for her too than she's not staying up till midnight or whatever. But
That's true. That's a good point. She's a very wise woman. Like she just is, she'll
yeah,
change stuff like that to make it convenient for the athletes. And she's always thinking
yeah,
about the athletes. And I love that
she's
about
so
her.
giving, so giving. Yeah. So with that, we'll wrap this episode up. If you would like to find us on Instagram, you can go to at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. And if you would like to apply for coaching with Lee or I, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. Thanks for listening, guys.